one shaheed, hundreds of shuhada.
Ahmed Mahmoud, honoured on this day, is only one among hundreds who have died. And in Tahrir Square, the vigil continues. It will end, the people say, only when Hosni Mubarak steps down. Jackie Rowland, Al Jazeera, Cairo.
Right now, some 8 million South Sudanese have been told they'll soon be living in a new country. Official results confirmed what nearly 99% of voters already knew, that they chose to split from the north in January's referendum. The celebrations have begun, but as Harry Mutasa reports, there is also concern about the future.
It was expected most Southerners would vote to separate from the North, but the overwhelming numbers of people who did so is amazing for people here in the South. It just shows how desperately and how urgently people here have wanted to split, and they voted for secession. The main hope for the people is that perhaps if they govern themselves, they will be able to develop a region that they feel has been neglected for many, many decades by officials in the North. It's going to be a huge challenge, a huge task for officials. Time may be against them. People here have high expectations. They want schools, they want hospitals, they want basic services like running water. This takes money, this takes help from the international community, but generally officials here are saying that they will do their best. They know they have a mammoth task ahead of them, and they're saying that with the support of the people, with the patience of the people, they hope that these outcomes can be achieved. On Monday night, there will be celebrations here in the South. People are already celebrating. It's a momentous occasion. It's a historic occasion, but on the backs of everyone's mind, they know that the road ahead will not be easy.
Well, let's take this on a little bit. Speak to Linda Bashai, a Sudan specialist, joining us from Washington, D.C. Linda, welcome to the programme. A mammoth task is the phrase, isn't it? Indeed, Juba to be a world capital, but it couldn't look less like a world capital right now, and that's kind of symptomatic for the new country as a whole, as it will be.
That's correct. Juba is still growing, one could say. However, I would point out that at the moment, Juba also has a bit of a feel of a boomtown to it. It's very, very busy and very full of life, and very, at the moment, very ecstatic and full of jubilation and a lot of cooperative mood amongst the southern Sudanese population at the moment.
So what areas do we have to look out for as this new country takes its nascent steps forward, its tottering steps forward into this kind of brave new world, considering that, you know, it's an extremely poor country, but it does have this incredible wealth at hand?
Indeed. It has many positive things going for it in addition to the oil production. It's got a very underdeveloped agricultural sector that could really help it to diversify and not rely so much on oil. But on the other hand, it also has tremendous challenges in terms of being able to use the capacity of its people and to provide basic logistics, so even that, even the willingness of the external community, the external actors, the neighboring countries and the international community can even get things done there. It's tremendously difficult to simply get things done in the South at the moment. Simply from a practical perspective, driving from one city to another is next to impossible. It's extremely inconvenient. It's risky. So basic road paving, basic security, they really need to focus on police and education and the logistics of roads, and also the legal sector, so that all of the arrangements, the contracts being made can be observed and upheld. So there are institutions in place to uphold or to deal with disputes. It's a tremendous challenge.
Absolutely. Now, right, Linda, you'll know that many people, of course, were worried about the potential for violence during and after the referendum, but that didn't really pan out, did it? Which was a good thing, obviously. So do you think that now that the danger for violence has passed, bearing in mind the issue of Abyei has still got to be dealt with?
Well, you raise a very interesting point. I would never say that the danger for violence or the risk of violence is past at this particular stage in Sudan's history, and that goes for other parts of Sudan, Darfur, and the rest of the north, as well as the south. It was a wonderful thing that the referendum took place so well, so peacefully, and in such an organized fashion. There are certainly risks. Abyei is one of them. We've also seen violence in Malakal in the last 2 days. So I think that that has to do with the integrated units in the military being pulled apart. The southern armed groups that have been integrated into the northern military are unwilling to be moved back to the north. They wish to stay in the south. And so that has been the scene of quite a bit of violence, with some innocent people killed as well. I think that the potential for South-on-South tribal violence and competition is also very present. There's cattle raiding. There are other parts of the north and south border besides Abyei that have very similar issues in terms of sharing water and cattle grazing rights that Abyei has. So it will be tremendous, full of tremendous challenges going forward from here. So I would not say the risk is finished at all.
Absolutely. So a new country, but many, many difficulties lie ahead. Linda, thanks very much. Appreciate that. Now, the WikiLeaks founder, Julian Assange, has been in court in the United Kingdom to fight extradition to Sweden over claims of sexual misconduct. Let's get the details from Lauren Taylor. She's in our European Broadcast Centre. Lauren.
Thanks very much, Nick. Yes, Julian Assange is wanted for questioning by Swedish authorities over claims that he committed sexual offences against 2 women in Stockholm last year. But his defence lawyer has told a court in London that it would be a flagrant denial of justice if Assange were to be extradited. Lawrence Lee was at the court.
Arriving at court, Julian Assange looked relaxed and less tense than he sometimes does, surrounded by high-profile celebrities, human rights supporters, and urged on by a group of young protesters who see the dark hand of the CIA behind this rape case. His team had tried to steal a march on the prosecutors by publishing his defence against the allegations online, all very WikiLeaks, and they sought to dismantle the extradition case. His defence team argues the Swedish prosecutor doesn't have the right to issue a European arrest warrant. They're concerned the trial would be held in secret with no chance of open justice. They also call it an abuse of process because Assange has offered himself for questioning but was turned down. They also argue Assange is the victim of illegal, corrupt behaviour by the Swedish prosecutors, and that any extradition could lead to his deportation to the United States, where he could face the death penalty. The prosecution insists Assange did use violence in his sexual activities in Sweden and tried to play down fears that the case is a ruse to clear the way for an extradition to the United States. The defence team here have started to produce witnesses to try to undermine the extradition case against Julian Assange. Their first, a female retired Swedish judge who says she had more than 30 years' experience in criminal law. She said she regarded the prosecutor's evidence in Sweden against Assange as peculiar and malicious, and the prosecutor as having biased views against men. Yet when the prosecutor here tried to ask her questions, she suddenly found it very difficult to explain Swedish law in English, or even at times to understand some of the questions. Another witness suggested one of the alleged victims had changed her story.
48 hours after the crime, the alleged crime, she volunteered to become Julian Assange's personal press secretary. The story given to the police does not bring up those instances.
And Assange himself told the media he was feeling more confident, and so did his supporters.
5.5 months. We have been in a condition where a black box has been applied to my life. And on the outside of that black box has been written the word rape. That box is now, thanks to an open court process, being opened. And I hope over the next day we will see that that box is in fact empty and has nothing to do with the words that are on the outside of it.
I think that some of the evidence came through, which is a very good news, that the truth is emerging.
The hearing is scheduled to end on Tuesday. There may or there may not be a final ruling on the extradition. Lawrence Lee, Al Jazeera, in London.
The British Prime Minister has said the decision to release the only man convicted of the 1988 Pan Am Lockerbie bombing was profoundly wrong. It comes as a new report shows the previous British government did all it could to help Libya win the release of Abdelbasset al-Megrahi. At the time, it said the decision came from Scotland Paul Brennan has the details.
The release of the Lockerbie bomber Abdel Basset al-Megrahi in 2009 is still the source of considerable anger in America and the UK. Megrahi remains the only person to have been convicted of involvement in the bombing of Pan Am Flight 103 over Lockerbie in 1988. Megrahi's freedom was granted by the devolved authorities in Scotland on compassionate grounds, on the basis that he had been diagnosed with terminal cancer. But the new review